everyone, I'm Mark Sievers, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So it's been a long time since I've hung out with you, but I'm back and I'm ready to celebrate 2022 with so many new videos, all kinds of new recipes coming your way, ideas about entertaining, flower arranging, all the things I know that you love. And speaking of things I know that I love, I'm here with my wonderful friend, Marika Vida, known as the Mom Som. She is a world-class sommelier. And normally, I would be a little intimidated kind of sipping wine and talking about wine with someone like that. But Marika, you have been like the most gracious person when it comes to explaining wine and how to taste it and how it interacts with your palate. And it's something that, you know, I have all these wine encyclopedias and wine books, and I've kind of read them. I probably fell asleep when I was reading them. But whenever I'm with you,
I have two, actually. So
whenever I'm with you, I'm wide awake and I always learn something. So I thought, you know, this would be a fun way to just give high level, but in what I would call for myself layman's terms, of how you can taste wine and kind of like how wine interacts with things.
I agree. I mean, you know,
Should we
Mark,
sip something?
you bring up a really important point, I think, with wine. Wine has a lot of mystique to it, and people get daunted by wine.
It's a perfect word, yeah.
And it is my job to demystify it. And it's really my job to demystify it when you're in amazing luxury pajamas. I'm like,
this is why I love you so much.
And we match the wine.
Match. We're having a little Bordeaux moment.
I'm definitely with Mark Sievers.
You guys, I told you, we don't have any fun together at all. We actually, you know, quick little backstory. Marika and I actually met for the very first time in Nantucket in 2018 at the Nantucket Wine and Food Festival. And
then Newport.
And then Aspen. And then all these things and on repeat. And
because we go to all the bad places.
Yes. And we do all the good things together. We drink all the good things
yes,
together.
We do. Yes, we do. It's been a really great ride.
So let's start with, okay, you've done it. I'm doing it because I see you do it. Why are we swirling? And why are we doing this? And why are we holding things up? And what exactly am I looking for?
So the swirl, well, let's start from the beginning in terms of just a brief little piece on how to taste wine. There's a couple ways to go about this. I tend to look at it from the standpoint as a sommelier. So I'm always looking at things like the color, because the color is a tell for me, because I'm doing blind tasting exams.
Oh,
so
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's a thing. It's a thing for people in the business, but it's not quite as important for the consumer, the color, although the color can still tell you things, right? If you can see through it, like I can see through this, that gives me, it's an indicator, as I would say, as to maybe what grape variety it is.
Oh, okay.
Right? And as white wine ages, for example, it darkens. As red wine ages, it goes from this, like this is a kind of a pretty ruby color. It will get kind of more brownish and darken as it goes along too. So it just depends. And obviously, like the grape varieties make, it's DNA, right? Just like, you know, I have two sons, they're different. They come from the same two people, but they're different. They have different DNA. You know, it's the same thing with a grape variety, right? We have to look at it like, a Pinot Noir is not going to be like a Cabernet Sauvignon. All right. So you have these variables is how I would put it when you look at that. So we're looking at it, arguably least important thing. Next thing we do is swirl. And the reason why we swirl.
You know, one time I tried that in a restaurant, my very first time, I think I was.
Did it go all
well,
over?
I was not 21. I was a little younger than that. And I thought I was going to be very fancy. And I swirled so hard, I broke the thing. I broke the stem from the base, and the wine spilled over, and it hit the thing, and it shattered, went everywhere. So now I know how to hold it.
So
I've come a long way, darling.
It's making an entrance. That's making an entrance, right?
Yes.
We all have those stories. I've done it as a professional. So it happens, definitely. Swirling opens the wine. Wine has been living in a bottle. Okay, so it needs to be able to breathe because it's a living thing. And when you swirl it, it's opening up, it's allowing the oxygen to hit it more, which releases the aromas.
So it's not
flavors.
just to make us all look fancy.
No.
Okay.
No. But that's fun too. That's fun too, especially when you pick it up and you do it, right?
I haven't mastered that.
You do the little swirly thing. Yeah, it's fun. And the goal is obviously, I actually like doing it on the table. But there's a lot of people that like to just stand there and go like this.
Oh, you'd be wearing it if I did that. People, you guys don't know, I'm very clumsy. Ryan can tell you, I trip multiple times a day. I'm kind of a klutz. So I'm going to stick to a solid a solid table and a solid hand.
I get it. Well, at least if this spilled on me, it would blend in. We'd be okay. We'd be okay. So the next thing after swirling it is obviously to smell your wine and to nose your wine. And this is incredibly important because if you think about it, we can only taste 4 things, arguably.
Okay.
And you, as my fabulous chef and cook.
Thank you. You're very sweet.
Do you know what those 4 things are?
Color, clarity. Oh, no, that's diamonds.
The other important 4.
The other important 4. Well, taste.
So we're using when we're tasting something, we get sweet.
Oh, savory.
Sour. Bitter. And salt. And arguably the 5th, umami. All right, they had to kind of bring that in. So
because I was like, I'm not a mathematician, but that was 5 things. Not 4.
but you know, it always started out with 4, and then umami became this thing that was kind of on it.
It's that new word, right? It's very like, oh, it has umami flavor.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know.
Right, and it's separate from the other 4, so they had to give it some credence. But the point there, though, is the fact that you can only taste so many things. Like when you have a cold, there's absolutely no point in having a fancy bottle of wine because you're only tasting those things.
I love it. When I have a cold, I should still be drinking wine, just not the fancy bottles.
No, the ones that,
Again, another reason why you and
the
I
ones
get
that
along.
people bring to you and leave. Sorry, don't repeat that. Because you can't get any pleasure out of it. Because when we smell something, we can smell over 1,000 things. So, and a fun way to try this at home is, literally try the wine, taste it, smell it, taste it, try it. And then plug your nose and do the same thing, and it will be completely different.
Can we try that? Because I've never done that. So what are we doing first? We're going to swirl.
So we're swirling, and then we're smelling, and we're looking for what kind of aromas here. I'm getting like this kind of tart cherry, red, like Bing cherry fruit. And again, a lot of this is power of suggestion, right? I mean, I know what this is, but I always want to give you buzzwords, so that you can kind of get comfortable.
I'm smelling grapes.
Yeah. Good thing. Good thing, right? Yes, all wine is made from grapes. Actually, not all wine is. You do have a fruit category of wine where you can make raspberry wine and apple wine and things like that. But
that
for our
was on an episode of Schitt's Creek for her Moira Rosé.
It would be on Schitt's Creek. Leave it to the Canadians. Leave it to the Canadians.
Well, you're Canadian.
I know. That's why I can say that.
Exactly. All right. So we've swirled. We've
nosed. So we're getting all the aromas coming out of here, which is largely to me fruit forward and red fruit. And then now I'm tasting it. Your little swish, get it all over. All right, because then you're reaching all parts of your mouth and your tongue.
That's a good Pinot Noir.
Yes, it is. Ooh. Yeah.
Well, I opened it for you.
I know, right? See there, right? We didn't even blind. We could have pretended that he knew he was doing some blind tasting, but
but that would have not been. Nobody. I wouldn't have even believed it.
Right. So we're getting a lot of beautiful, again, that cherry fruit.
I can
a little bit of licorice. Again, power of suggestion, right? Red licorice as opposed to black licorice.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. A little bit of tea. I get a little bit of black tea in here, which a lot of these are kind of signature things for Pinot Noir. Although because this is so brightly, the fruit is so bright, I'm definitely going to New World here. So this would be something in California, for example, as opposed to France.
This is why I keep her around. You are correct.
Am I in California Pinot Noir?
California Pinot Noir. So okay, so let's talk about now, because I drink what I like, and I eat what I like, and I drink what I like when I eat.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I love it.
So I just I think, oh, that's probably going to go with that, or we're going to have an all champagne night, or we're going to have all rosé. But when it comes to like a red wine, so I have some cheese. And I have some chocolate, because I thought those are kind of classic with red wine. With cheese, I mean, I guess with all wine, really, different kinds. But the other day we were at an event together, and you were talking about tannins.
Right.
And I don't eat meat. And you made a point of saying that the tannins, when you're eating a big juicy steak, really kind of help like balance or play off of one another to help that experience. And I thought, well, I really, it's been 20 plus years since I've had a steak, and my Rolodex was not going back that far. And then you said, and you looked at me and you said, or it's like when you drink your tea with milk,
right,
which is what I drink all day every day. Explain to me exactly what you meant by that.
So tannins are a natural preservative that are in the skin, the pip, and sometimes can come from the stem when they're actually macerating the grape with the stem in there.
Okay.
So it can be, you absolutely need to have those involved to get tannins. Okay. All right. And so that largely means red wine, although we do have a new category, orange wine, but for right now, let's not go there because
orange wine. Okay.
It's where they're actually making white wine on the skins too. So that allows for some tannin.
Oh,
but historically speaking, that wasn't as common. Right now it's now it's a category.
And orange is probably because of the color?
Because it has some skin contact, right? From the white grape.
Yep.
But in this case with red wine, we're always using those things. It does depend on the red wine as to how much tannin you get. So generally speaking, Pinot Noirs have less tannin because they're really thin-skinned, all right, as opposed to a Cabernet Sauvignon, which has a lot of tannin, it's thicker skin, all right. So tannin can, it's what makes it feels like you feel it on the side of your mouth, and sometimes it feels like suede. And
I like suede.
I like suede too, but sometimes it feels like corduroy. And if you're like me, a child of the 70s, everything was brown, corduroy.
Again, this is why avocado. This is why I love Marika.
And yellow, like mustard.
Mustard. This is why I love you so much to talk to you about wine, because you know exactly what suede feels like. You know exactly what corduroy feels like. Suede in your mouth sounds lovely. Yeah. Corduroy, that doesn't seem so premium.
Right.
So this is why for you, I always learn, and sometimes I stare at you when you're talking because I'm really absorbing everything you say, and you have beautiful eyes.
Oh, thank you. That's my Valentine.
Yes.
So you do need to. The things that are obviously very familiar for me, just like you, Mark, when you're cooking, are not familiar for most people. Right? They're not going to relate to what's tannin. You have to give them something. You have to give them an analogy or something so that we can demystify this.
Okay, right? So let's demystify. So I always thought also that that tannins are what gives you a headache, or I don't like the word hangover. I prefer to say I'm feeling a little delicate. So after
we've had a few delicate mornings, I think.
So after a night of indulging,
sure,
is it tannins that do those play into feeling a little delicate the next day?
So there's a lot of things that get blamed.
Overindulging is not one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
overserved,
I like to say overserved. I'm overserved.
under-supervised.
Yeah, I'm overserved. I'm overserved.
We've
That's the
played
problem.
that game before, honey.
Yes.
We excel at that game.
Yes, we're very good at that. It's part of the biz for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, couple answers to that
Yeah.
because a really, really tannic. Generally speaking, I don't blame that on tannin, and I think that the blame also goes to another area that's not really the problem: sulfites. All right, which is used to preserve because wine can oxidize. Like for example, if you've just picked that grape and it's a warm day and you're heading over to the winery and it's not that particular vineyard isn't close, on the way those grapes can just like if you have an apple, okay, and you take a bite out of it and you leave it on your countertop
And it turns brown.
That's
oxidizing.
that's oxidizing. Well, that happens with grapes. So they do use sulfur to prevent that. Now, we have a lot of new movements, with the natural wine category where they're using little or no sulfur. And a lot of people believe I get headaches from sulfites. But if you think about it, there are more sulfites in a handful of dried fruit than there is in a bottle of wine.
So I can't use that as an excuse anymore.
Well, I really think the headache thing, two things. I think it's more histamines. You have histamines in wines. There's a lot of things we don't know. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in here, right? Histamines can be very guilty of, I think that's more your headache issue. Mm-hmm. And you can take an antihistamine beforehand to counteract that.
Well, that's interesting.
I think that's more, I think that is definitely more the guilty. What's the word I'm looking for? Guilty what?
I don't know that word, guilt. I'm sorry, dear. I'm not familiar with.
I'm drawing a blank on what my next word should be, but I think histamine,
like the
culprit.
The culprit.
I think that histamines is more of an issue than sulfites and tannins. That being said, when you have something that's super, super tannic, it can be for a couple of reasons. It's the grape variety. It also can be the fact that it's a really young wine and not meant to be drunk yet. So again, wine has that lifeline. Now, that being said, a lot of the wines that we drink are meant to be drunk young, unless we're looking to lay something
especially
down.
The price point, right?
Right,
exactly.
Right, that comes into it. Going back to tannin, you're not a meat eater.
Yes, I'm not, but I love cheese.
Yes. So when you look at something that's going to counteract a very tannic wine, a piece of cheese is going to do that every day, just like Mark was saying, milk and tea. All right, it will soften it. So that's why we talk about
really delicious together, aren't
right?
they? Cheers.
Kind of fun. Cheers. Cheers. Cheers to cheese.
Cheese.
Red wine.
So cheese. That's one type of fat. Mm-hmm. So to understand. Mm-hmm. Suede, not corduroy. What would be something that would give you that corduroy experience? Is there an example for that?
A type of really like tannic wine, you mean, that can be
like?
I think of a very young Chianti, like Sangiovese, can the tannins just feel more intense. Especially if it's not seeing any new French oak, which kind of adds that little bit of vanillin and clove. So even though it's not sweet, it feels like it is.
In the cooking world, or I would say that kind of like rounds things out a little bit. The cloves and vanilla, it helps kind of add a little bit of nose and a little bit of spice and kind of calm down other things. Like too much orange or too much clove, it can be a little medicinal.
Right, and you also just have grapes that are more naturally tannic, or the tannins feel just a little harsher or greener. Okay. And so depending on how you manipulate that wine will be the differentiator.
Okay.
It just, so to go on that, like once you oak something, so we think of this is how I love to describe oak, because a lot of people are like, okay, what does oak do? Well, we could do 3 weeks on oak alone, because we could talk about, new French oak. We could talk about neutral oak, which means that it's been used already. So my analogy for that is you buy a new car and it has leather seats. For the first 6 months, every time you get in the car, you smell leather, right?
Yes.
all of a sudden you don't, because you've worn it in. Well, that's what
Mhm.
happens to an oak barrel.
So we've gone through all of the we talked about tannins, sulfates, oakiness, what that means. Last part of wine wisdom.
Here's another rule of thumb. The better quality wine you drink, the better off you are. All right. And that doesn't necessarily mean expensive. It really is in how it's made. Less intervention, generally speaking, is better. Just like if we think, remember back in the day when we thought Wonder Bread was good for us?
Yeah.
When the industrialized
But it
time.
did make a good grilled cheese. Telling you.
You know, less processed. It's the wine industry is definitely going the same way. So I would say that is a good place to end. We want to make sure, and also for our environment.
Yeah, I think that's a great. What I love, I always talk about food and ingredients, and it's not about the quantity of ingredients that you have in your refrigerator or freezer in your pantry. It really is about the quality.
Sure.
Because, I made for you those beautiful confit tomatoes last night, and it was just tomatoes from the grocery store, some olive oil, salt and pepper, and a sprig of thyme, and they were phenomenal. They were the best tomatoes at the grocery store. They were the organic, all the good stuff, organic herbs, good olive oil,
quality.
Salt and pepper. But it was, 5 things.
Quality
and we
over
could have
quantity
eaten those
always.
all night long.
I know. And speaking of time, I need more time with you.
Yeah. Oh, I always need more time with you. I love you so much.
Cheers. Love you too. Mwah.
Well, I think we should do this more often because I have a feeling people are going to have a lot of questions. And I think that's a good thing because the more that you can help educate, for the everyday person.
Sure. The goal is to find what you like to drink.
Yes.
And to know how to ask for it when you go into a restaurant and speak to your sommelier or go into your retailer and ask those questions. Knowing what to ask for and describe it is key.
We're going to do more of these.
Yeah.
We're going to do more of these because I think people are going to really be into this.
I'm in for the cheese.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Oh, not just me.
Yeah, I was there. It can go both ways.
Thank you, my love. We will see you very soon.
Thank you, love.
Sometime.
Cheers. Cheers. Thanks, everybody.
Well, you guys, I hope you had fun meeting Marika. I'm sure you did. I hope you maybe re-watch this video, pour yourself a glass of wine, and kind of, taste and nose along as Marika was educating us, and see if you can kind of maybe see, that same experience at home. So give this video a thumbs up. Please like and subscribe, and head over to marksievers.com for all kinds of really fabulous recipes that include wine and
don't
champagne.
miss that souffle.
And I will see you guys really soon. Au revoir.